You know, when I take my kids to the park, I just can't believe how much energy they have. I wish I could bottle the stuff. And you know, I actually get a little bit jealous because it wasn't that many years ago I had energy like that. Then when you grow up, something happens and you hit adult life and you wake up every morning tired. And I've been asking myself, is that the way life's supposed to be? You wake up dog-tired every day and drag yourself from appointment to appointment? And if you're tired all the time, what does that do to your spirituality and your relationship to God? Well, stick around today. I've got really good news for you.
It has stood the test of time. God's book, the Bible, still relevant in today's complex world. It is written, sharing hope around the globe. Presented by Sean Boonstra.
Easy steps for better health. I'm so tired.
Do you remember a time in your life when everything seemed exciting? When you actually bounced out of bed in the morning brimming with energy, ready for anything the new day might bring? Let me ask you a question. What in the world happened? Why is it that you just can't seem to get excited about things like you used to? And why do you find yourself so tired all day? Personally, I'm not convinced that God designed you to drag yourself around from now to the grave. And today my guest is Dr. Fred Harding, a specialist in the field of health and nutrition. His doctorate is in preventive care, and he's a registered dietitian. On top of that, he holds a master's degree in theology, and he's an ordained minister. And incidentally, he's also a co-worker of mine here at It Is Written. Dr. Harding, it's really good to have you on the program today.
I'm delighted to be with you, Sean.
Listen, Dr. Harding, everywhere I go, people seem to be complaining about the same thing. They say, listen, I'm just always tired, and I'm dragging myself around with not enough sleep, I drink too much coffee, and the weekend comes, I'm even too tired to go to church. Tell me something. Is fatigue a real problem in America today?
Fatigue is a significant problem in our society today. Recent surveys show that 2/3 of Americans say they are very tired most of the time.
2 out of 3 of us are saying we're always tired.
That's correct.
Well, listen, I've got to admit that I probably fall into that 2/3. I probably wake up tired way more often than I should. As a matter of fact, I've just gotten off of a long itinerary. I'm dragging myself around all the time. And the thing I'm curious about is, what does that do to us? If 2/3 of us are sleeping all the time or, tired all the time, and we've got jobs that place really high demands on us, what's it actually doing to us? Does it affect us?
It absolutely does, Sean. A tired person is slower, they are less efficient, and they make more mistakes.
Okay.
And a lot of research in recent years has demonstrated some of the reasons as to why that actually may be the case. We've observed for many years that tired people's performance slips. Tired soldiers don't make good soldiers. Tired nurses make more mistakes. Tired doctors have more accidents on the way home. They too may make a few more mistakes, even in the care of patients, although that's a difficult thing to prove sometimes. There's more and more research that's looking at this kind of thing. However, probably the most fascinating kind of research to me has looked at why the brain function seems to slow down.
Right, okay. Now, I can understand people make mistakes when they're tired. I say things I don't mean when I'm tired. I put this file in the wrong slot and so on when I'm tired. But the thing that I wonder about, why? Why does fatigue do that to my mind, doctor? Because I'll share with you, I think of it as a computer. It ought to just work no matter how tired I am. I just plug it into an energy source and let it run. Why am I making mistakes when I'm tired? What's actually going on?
A series of studies that have recently been done at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research over the last 10 years. And they have taken healthy subjects who are fully rested and using modern technology that is non-invasive, looked at the certain aspects of the function of the brain.
Okay.
And these individuals were tested when they had been fully rested and now were awakened at 6 in the morning, and these brain scans were done. They then were kept awake, but they weren't asked to do any difficult problem solving, simply remaining awake a day at the beach, twiddling one's thumbs.
Okay. So they're not engaged in high thought processes. It's just day-to-day existence.
Very relaxed.
Okay.
And then on the same day, 16 hours after awaking, the same tests were done. And when they compared the results, they found that the front part of the brain lost blood supply compared to when they were rested and first awakened.
So we don't have fuel going to the front part of the brain when we're tired?
Not as much.
Okay, so what does that do to us? I mean, why is the front part of the brain, you'll have to forgive my ignorance, but what does that front part of the brain do for us? What actually takes place there? Why is this affecting us?
The front part of the brain carries out the most important functions of the mind. It is where we make our decisions.
Okay.
And successful living is dependent upon good decisions.
Now, are we talking about like the decision which pair of socks to wear this morning, or are we talking about big decisions or moral decisions?
It involves every decision, from the so-called small ones to the biggest ones.
Okay.
And this research has demonstrated, given us a reason to understand why the front part of the brain is so important to this decision-making process. There are what are known as the high-order mental functions.
Okay.
And these high-order mental functions are 5. The first is discrimination or discernment. It's
Right.
the ability to recognize that there are choices that we can make. And when you get up in the morning, a simple example is that you discern in your drawer between the white socks and the dark socks.
Yeah, you know I always make the wrong decision, doctor. I put the whites in that's what my wife tells me. But
That's why I ask my wife what I should wear.
Okay,
and
so
if it goes with it or not.
that's the discrimination or discernment.
There are no decisions to be made if there are no options.
Okay.
I can't think of anything in life, any circumstance, that has no options at all.
Absolutely.
So we're making discernment all the time.
Okay.
And we're exercising that. When we're tired, we don't discern as well.
That can be dangerous when it gets into the moral realm, obviously.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other higher mental order?
The next high-order mental function is judgment. That's where
Okay.
we evaluate those options that we've discerned.
Very good. Okay.
And we draw upon past experience, knowledge, etc., to choose which one is the best for the current set of circumstances.
Okay.
The next higher-order mental function is initiative.
Initiative.
Initiative is the ability to start doing something now that we've decided we need to do. You know,
Okay.
there are many times in life where we know what we should do, but we don't act on it.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
And when we're tired, discernment, judgment, and initiative wane. And we're not as effective in our decision making. But it goes even further than that.
Okay.
Our ability to problem solve is a high order mental function.
Okay.
And what happens when we're tired is that we may look at the options and choose one that we think is the very best based upon our judgment. But in reality, our field of vision has been narrowed, and we have missed the very best one that might be out here on the left or might be out here on the right, because problem solving requires the ability to look at all the possible options.
Now that makes good sense to me. The other day I was exceptionally tired and somebody approached me and said, "What do you think about this? Should we do A, B, or C?" And I looked at it, and you know something? I'd only slept a few nights out of the last week, and I couldn't make a decision. I looked at all those options and I said, I don't know. I couldn't evaluate them. I couldn't do anything with it.
And E or F may not even have been within your vision, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah.
And F might have been the very best one.
Okay.
Under those circumstances.
Right, right.
That's what happens when we're tired. And then the last high order mental function is forethought. And this has a lot to do with efficiency. Forethought is the ability to begin doing something now that will save us time in the future. Tired people are not very efficient. It takes them longer to do the same things that they could have done when they were rested.
Now, that seems to make sense. In light of everything you've shared with me, we don't have the ability to make judgments. We don't have the ability. Our initiative is weakened. All of these areas are weakened. And so when you look at a task, you can't always make the right decision to do it the best way or the most efficient way.
That's exactly what happens when we're tired.
Right. I think you've just described most people listening to the show today. We've all lived with this, and we live with it a lot more than we ought to.
You've probably heard of Yo-Yo Ma, the world-famous cellist.
Absolutely.
He gave a concert in Carnegie Hall in New York City a few years ago. And following the concert, he got in a taxi to go to his hotel. And he put his cello in the trunk of the taxi. When he got to the hotel, he paid the cabbie. He went into the hotel, went to his room, and then realized that his cello was left in the trunk.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, he would not normally have done that. But in an interview with a newspaper reporter, he said, "I was so tired that I simply forgot it."
Now, I'm no Yo-Yo Ma, but the other day I left my camera on the airplane for the same reason. I was actually at the luggage carousel when mentally I'm thinking, you know, I usually have 3 bags, something's missing. And it took me 20 minutes or so until I realized my camera is still on that plane and it's leaving. Something happens.
There's another area of the brain, Sean, that is also affected by fatigue. It's called the thalamus, and it has many important functions, but relative to our decision making, it passes all of the sensory information to the higher order or to the higher levels of the mind.
Okay, so this is like a relay switch from my sense of touch, taste, feel, hearing?
Exactly.
Okay.
And when we are tired, the funnel gets smaller, if you will. In other words, the same amount of information is coming in from the senses, but the funnel fills up because it's smaller, and some data is lost. And when we make decisions on only partial information, that's when we tend to make catastrophic decisions. This is what happened with Exxon Valdez.
Okay.
Most people think it was because of the inebriation of the captain. The captain was actually in his quarters. It was the third mate who was on the bridge when the accident occurred.
I didn't know that.
He had been awake on duty for 32 consecutive hours.
Oh, my goodness.
And when he finally was awakened from a stupor by navigational warnings, he made a quick scan of the instruments there on the bridge, realized this great ship was off course. But he didn't have the full information because he had missed a lot of it while he was in this sleepy stupor. And when he made a decision to take corrective action, it's very interesting. He took action to turn the ship toward the reef instead of away from the reef.
So he couldn't process the information.
Now, the National Transportation Safety Board said that wouldn't have make any difference in the outcome because he was already too close to the reef. But that illustrates what happens in the decision-making process when people are tired.
See, now that's big because none of us, or most of us who are watching today, are never going to steer a ship that big. But we are steering something much larger than the ship. We're steering our lives.
That's right.
And we've got to get from birth to the grave, if the Lord doesn't come, and do something with our lives that honors God. And if we're not able to process information and make good decisions, we're not making shipwreck of an oil tanker. We're making a shipwreck out of our whole lives.
Exactly right.
All right. Now, listen. We're talking about mental function, but I'm suspecting, every time I go on a long itinerary, I travel overseas to speak or to do one of these things, and I skip several nights' sleep. It happens to me all the time, and I get fatigued, and it seems that the first moment I get a day off and I relax, I get a cold or I get a flu or something. What does it do to our immune system? What's it doing to our physical health? Does fatigue put us at higher risk for disease?
A number of studies have demonstrated that chronically being tired does increase our risk of disease. One of the most recent studies has demonstrated that in healthy young men, when they've been deprived of about 4 hours of sleep per night over a period of 5 to 6 days, their ability to handle glucose approaches that of a diabetic.
Really?
Yes. Now, the good news was that when they got rest, it went back to normal.
Sure.
But we saw increased levels of cortisol, which is one of the stress hormones, and we are now beginning to think that being tired decreases our ability to handle the stresses of life as well, and may make us more vulnerable to the effects of stress.
Okay.
It's interesting that from a performance standpoint, that a person who misses 2 hours of sleep per night for 4 nights has the equivalent performance of an individual who has skipped the whole night of sleep.
No kidding. So I can't believe it's God's will for our lives in North America to run through life fatigued all the time, tired all the time, at wit's end all the time. And so the question I want to ask you today, what do we do about it? Everybody's tired. There are millions of people watching today who are exhausted. What do we do? Is there a strategy? How do we beat it?
There are several things I would suggest that can help us fight fatigue.
Okay.
The first is to get an adequate amount of rest. And for most of us, that means around 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep per night.
Very good.
All the experts agree that 7 hours is enough to get by on. But I think the Christian is expected to do more than just get by on.
Okay.
And so we need to make sleep a priority and make sure that we get enough sleep.
Okay, so number one, sleep.
Number two is to get an adequate amount of exercise. We can't truly get a recuperative night's sleep without physical activity.
Now that's very interesting to me. And we live in a world today where most people come home at the end of the day, eat dinner. Sometimes they don't even sit at the table. They flop on the couch with a plate and they turn on the tube and don't ever get off that couch and out for some exercise, and then they sleep terrible.
You're exactly right. And if they would get some physical activity on a daily basis, they would sleep much better.
What does it take?
It takes 30 to 60 minutes a day of physical activity. It doesn't have to be all together at one time.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay, so I don't have to go for an hour's run before work every morning. I can break this up into 3, 4, 5, 10-minute segments. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Oh, very
and
good.
you will get the benefits from the relaxation as well as the physiological benefits that will help engender a good night's rest.
So we've got sleep, we've got exercise. What are some of the other things we can do to be combating fatigue?
We need, thirdly, to learn to control our stress.
Okay. Now you're preaching to a guy who lives on the edge of stress all the time, so I'm all ears, doctor.
We need to learn to handle that positively.
Okay.
Without letting it wear us down. Stress contributes to our fatigue. And
Well, I can say amen to that. I know
long
what you're
hours
talking
of
about.
mental activity
Yeah.
contribute to fatigue, and stress is a function of mental activity.
Right. This is becoming absorbed in issues. It's letting things consume you.
We need to take some relaxing breaks, be able to set aside some of the worries and concerns, responsibilities that weigh on us, and truly be rested.
Okay.